long time, these noises to me meant success. With tabs open and a calendar so full, it felt important. It all felt like proof that I was on track. Because somewhere along the way, I learned a rule that I never once questioned. If it ever got quiet, it meant I'd fallen behind. And so I did everything I could to make sure that that never happened. Last semester, I rewrote my CV 7 times. Not because any of my experiences had changed, but because I needed proof that I still remained relevant in a future I hadn't figured out yet, and in rooms I hadn't even entered. But the hard truth was that I was just managing the fear of becoming irrelevant. But then I looked up and I saw it everywhere. An anxiety underneath the ambition, a sense that we'd been trained to understand the world, and yet we're still uncertain beyond measure. So we do the one thing that still feels within reach. We optimize. We stay visible, not because we know where we're going, but because moving feels more defensible than stopping. At least if you're busy, no one, including you, has to ask the harder question of progress towards what exactly? We stopped asking that question a long time ago, and not because the answer got harder, but because the questioning did. And what worries me the most is that this constant personal need to stand out has transformed into the common unspoken rule in every room where decisions get made. Because the people making the decisions about our collective futures are the same people who've grown up inside this culture of constant motion. So, let me give you an example. Think about COP, where the world gathers at an attempt to rescue our planet. Even though the models exist and the science is rarely disputed, year after year, these summits end with communications designed to signal motion, targets, timelines, without requiring anyone to sit with what is still unresolved. The 2-week summit has a hard end date. The closing ceremony is already scheduled. The question quietly stopped being, what do we actually need? And became, what can we agree to announce before the gavel bangs? This is what our culture produces. People very good at looking like they're solving problems, and less so at sitting with the ones that take longer to solve. But when we do, it has a lasting impact, like it did for my friend in Northern Ireland. They call it the Troubles, with over 30 years of bombs, funerals, and fear. There were negotiations that fell through. People said that this will never work, but they stayed. They stayed in rooms thick with history and hatred. When agreements fell apart and had to be stitched back together word for word about a future nobody could promise. They stayed when the world was screaming at them to move, to act, to show progress. But despite the noise, progress came from a harder choice: to stay when leaving would have been easier. That staying didn't produce a miracle. I think it produced something far rarer. Peace. Imperfect. Fragile. But strong enough to interpret a cycle that had felt permanent. They stayed. And staying changed what was possible. You see, now these negotiators did something that our culture makes almost impossible. They resisted the urge to show progress before they actually created it. They knew that restraint doesn't photograph well. Staying in a room where nothing is resolved yet, that looks like failure. Yet, they did it anyway. So why do we refuse to learn from history? We've become so addicted to the high of constantly being in motion. But the harder truth is, sometimes we just need to stop, to look, and to learn. And above all else, we need to find the courage to stay.